It started like any other quiet morning at the Vancouver Aquarium. Grey skies, hushed walkways, and the rhythmic hum of life behind glass. But beneath the still surface of the Beluga exhibit, something was unraveling. Erin Walker, an experienced trainer, approached the tank like she had hundreds of times before. She wasn't just feeding a whale, she was reconnecting with someone she knew or thought she knew. What happened next was so fast, so quiet, it almost didn't register. No crowd, no screams, just a massive splash, ... Then silence. The radios crackled, staff sprinted, medical personnel dropped everything. What they found would shake the core of everything they believed about trust, captivity, and the animals they spent their lives caring for, because the attacker wasn't wild, aggressive, or unknown. It was Nala, the star of the aquarium, the gentle beluga they'd trusted for years. But this wasn't a random outburst. This was the breaking point, and it would force everyone, especially Erin, to face a truth they'd ignored for too long. To the public, Nala was a marvel, with skin like polished snow and eyes that seemed to follow every movement. She wasn't just a beluga, she was the star. Born in captivity, Nala never knew the wild. No tides, no migration. Just the gentle hum of filters and the rhythm of routine. From day one, she was surrounded by trainers, tourists, and the soft echo of her world behind glass. And yet, she thrived, or so it seemed. Visitors adored her. Children pressed their faces to the glass to see her blow bubbles or twirl mid-swim. Trainers described her as clever, responsive, almost soulful. She responded to hand signals with precision, mimicked behaviors effortlessly, and often initiated play. She was smart. She was special. She was trusted. But over time, the lines blurred. Was she happy or just compliant? In a life of structure and stimulus, her behaviors were interpreted through a lens of control. If she swam in circles, she was playing. If she slapped her tail, she was excited. If she hesitated, it was chalked up to distraction. But what if she wasn't distracted? What if she was trying to say something no one understood? The truth is, captivity rewrites nature. And Nala had never known another script. She lived for the cues, the sessions, the bucket of herring. And when she changed, even subtly, it wasn't noticed as a cry for help. It was reframed as a phase, a mood, a quirk, a line in a daily report. Behind the scenes, trainers whispered about odd moments, delayed responses, louder vocalizations, strange new patterns, but nothing seemed serious. After all, she was still participating, still eating, still the gentle creature they had always known. Or so they believed. Because Nala didn't stop being who she was. She just started becoming someone. They no longer recognized Erin Walker wasn't just a trainer. She was one of the few who believed in connection over command. Born near the rugged shores of Nova Scotia, Erin grew up with the sea in her blood. While other kids played video games, she studied tide charts, watched seabirds, and dreamed of working with marine life. It wasn't just fascination, it was purpose. After earning her degree in marine biology, Erin found herself in Vancouver, a world away from her childhood, but exactly where she wanted to be. The Vancouver Aquarium felt like a place where her passion could become action. That's where she met Nala from the beginning. Their bond was different. It wasn't just hand signals and routines. Erin saw something in Nala, a spark, an awareness, a mind always watching, always thinking, and Nala responded. She would press her head against the glass when Erin walked by. vocalize more when she entered the room, linger longer during sessions. To Erin, Nala wasn't just an exhibit. She was a partner. Their training sessions felt less like drills and more like dialogue. Over time, Erin became one of the few trusted to work closely with Nala, guiding her through enrichment tasks and performances with patience. Not pressure, but trust. In captivity is fragile, because what Erin didn't realize was that while their bond was real, Nala's world was still small, repetitive, and tightly controlled. And even the gentlest soul can fray under constant structure. Still, Erin paid attention. She noticed the subtle changes, the tail flicks, the hesitation, the vocal tension. She wrote them down, but the logs stayed buried in paperwork because, until something breaks, concern often goes unheard, and Erin didn't know it yet. But she was getting closer to the moment when everything would at first. The changes were easy to miss. Nala, who once surfaced instantly at the sound of a whistle, began hesitating. She'd delay her response, swim just out of reach, or hover silently beneath the water. Trainers joked that she was being moody, stubborn, or just having a Monday. But Erin didn't laugh. She watched Nala slap the water harder, circle erratically during sessions, vocalize in longer, harsher bursts. And while others brushed it off as quirks, Erin saw something deeper, a pattern. It was all logged, of course. Every missed cue, every odd noise, every moment of disobedience. But reports alone didn't tell the full story. They were numbers, notes, data. What they missed was the feeling, the sense that something vital was slipping beneath the surface, and yet no action was taken. After all, Nala wasn't aggressive. She hadn't harmed anyone. She still performed, still ate, still smiled for the crowds. In a place where appearances matter, discomfort hides easily behind a splash and a show. Even Erin began to second-guess herself. Maybe it really was just restlessness. Maybe Nala needed more enrichment, new toys, new routines. And so they gave her both. But nothing changed. Instead, Nala began pressing her rostrum, the rounded dome of her head against the pool's concrete wall. Motionless, silent, staring, she stopped responding to familiar hand signals. She flicked her tail violently during what were once calming sessions, and worst of all, her eyes lost something. That spark Erin had always trusted seemed dimmed, not gone, but buried beneath layers of fatigue and frustration. Still, no alarms were raised. There were no rules broken, no protocols breached, nothing loud enough to trigger concern, because in facilities like this, danger rarely roars. It whispers, and Nala had been whispering for months, but no one was really listening by the time the whispers turned into a scream. It was too late. March 12, 2009, 9:14 a.m. The public hadn't arrived yet. The aquarium was quiet. The pool glistened under artificial lights. Erin stood at the edge, stainless steel bucket in hand, ready for what should have been a normal training session. She tapped the surface of the water. 3 times the signal. Nala surfaced slowly, eyes locked on Erin. What followed happened. In seconds, without warning, Nala lunged. There was no delay, no hesitation. Her mouth closed around Erin's arm, and in one fluid motion, she yanked her into the water with terrifying force. There was no scream, just the violent crash of water, and a blur of white as trainer and whale vanished beneath the surface. The cold hit first, then came the pressure. Nala twisted underwater, dragging Erin like a rag doll. Her strength was undeniable. It wasn't a lunge of confusion, It was precise, deliberate. Erin fought to free herself as her lungs screamed for air, panic pounding. In her chest, then impact. Her shoulders slammed against the concrete pool wall. A jolt of pain shot through her body. Later, doctors would call it a severe rotator cuff tear. Seconds felt like hours. And then, it stopped. Nala released her. Erin burst to the surface, gasping, coughing, disoriented as the team raced toward her, shouting. Radios already crackling. But in those first moments, no one asked what happened. They asked if she was okay. The footage would later show no blood, no bite, just chaos. A splash, a flash. A human pulled into a world not meant for her. To outsiders, it might have looked like a slip, a misunderstanding, maybe even a bad trick gone wrong. But Erin knew better. She had seen the look in Nala's eyes right before it happened. There was no panic in them, no confusion, just a quiet, calm certainty. And then, just as suddenly, Nala sank, silent, watching. She didn't flee. She didn't thrash. She simply hovered beneath the surface, still, almost mournful, as if she had done what she needed to do and was waiting to be heard. In that moment, Erin understood something awful. Something she had never wanted to believe. That trust had a limit. That even love couldn't stop a cry. That had gone unheard for too long. Nala hadn't attacked from rage. She had spoken in the only language captivity had left her. Erin sat alone. That night, in the trainer's lounge, her shoulder wrapped in ice, her shirt still damp from the pool, her body aching, not just from the injury, but from the weight of everything she now understood. The doctors said it was a partial rotator cuff tear. She'd need weeks of therapy, maybe months. But the pain that kept her awake wasn't physical. It was the realization that Nala had been trying to speak long before that morning. The team gathered quietly. No jokes, no reassurances, just silence and the sharp scent of chlorine clinging to their uniforms. Together, they reviewed Erin's notes, logs she had quietly compiled for months. The tail flicks, the vocal shifts, the pauses in behavior. Individually, they were quirks. Together, they were a message, a pattern of distress, a slow unraveling, a scream disguised as routine. For the first time, someone said it aloud, aggression. But it wasn't said with anger. It was whispered, like something too dangerous to name. Still, when the report was filed, management stepped in with their official response. A miscommunication, a training inconsistency, an unusual reaction. Nothing more, no disciplinary action, no suspension of programs, no change in protocol. Officially, it never happened the way Erin felt it did. But she knew what she felt when Nala pulled her under. She knew the strength behind that grip wasn't confusion, it was controlled. She knew the stare she saw. In those final seconds wasn't fear, it was purpose, and something inside her shifted. She started to question everything, the ethics of performance, the meaning of their bond, the illusion of trust in an environment built on control. Because what happened that morning wasn't a betrayal, it was a final attempt to be heard. And Erin, though shaken and scarred, couldn't deny it anymore. Nala had spoken, and this time Erin finally listened. Years passed. Nala remained at the aquarium for a while, performing, eating, swimming her familiar loop. But something was different. The spark that once defined her seemed to dim. Trainers called her stable, but Erin knew the truth. Eventually, Nala was transferred as part of a breeding program. A new tank, new companions, a new story for visitors to hear. But to those who remembered that morning, it didn't feel like a new chapter. It felt like a quiet goodbye. We don't know what Nala felt in those final years, whether she healed or simply learned to survive in silence. But we do know she had tried to speak, and no one had listened until it was too late, in a rare, anonymous interview years later. Erin's voice still trembled as she reflected. "She wasn't trying to hurt me," she said. "She was telling me something, and I didn't listen. No anger, no blame, just sorrow. Sorrow for a creature she loved. Sorrow for a warning missed. And sorrow for the system that taught them both to ignore the whispers." Today, Erin no longer trains marine mammals. Instead, she advocates for them, calling for psychological evaluations, better mental health care, and more attention to the small signs of distress that often go unnoticed. Because animals in captivity don't always lash out. Sometimes they just stop trying. This wasn't just a story of an attack. It was a plea hidden beneath the water, buried in routine and drowned out by applause. If this story moved you, if you believe voices like Nala's deserve to be heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the stories that matter most are the ones we ignore the longest.